So this training is on a mindset talking about segment intending. So my goal with this talk is to convince you that number one, if we know how our brain works, we can make it more effective. Number two, you're putting out a vibe that affects you and your environment. Number three, you have the ability to choose between being at cause or at effect, which can determine how you show up in every situation. Number four, you can divide your day into separate segments to stay mindful of showing up how you want. And number five, you have the tools you need in yourself to decide who you are in each moment. Now, whenever you walk into a new situation, you are entering with a preset collection of assumptions, judgments, outlooks, viewpoints, etc. All of these come from decisions we've made about who we are, what we want, where we are, and what is possible for us. You very rarely, if ever, achieve what you think isn't possible. So let's look at the way our brains work. Your brain has two basic functions. Your brain makes associations between stimuli so that it can have predetermined outcomes. That is why when the stove is red, you know it's hot. The other thing the brain does is to find evidence for anything you tell it is true. Now the brain has a bias though. It considers everything as a threat, so it associates everything with fear so that it can protect you from harm. This all starts in our limbic system at the base of our brain, which is sometimes referred to as the lizard brain, one of the oldest parts of our brain. At any moment in time, you are surrounded by millions of points of data, and your brain can only process a minute portion of this. Now, this is especially interesting when you consider that the range of electromagnetic frequencies that our physical body can even perceive is less than 1% of the electromagnetic frequencies that are actually happening around you. Now, back to our brain. The way our brain picks out from the incredible amount of data it is receiving at any one time is processed by our reticular activating system. This is a part of our limbic brain that decides what we will pay attention to or not. This decision is based upon what we believe, what we are looking for, and our viewpoint. The main factor here, though, is that we can only act upon what we notice. So that's basically how our brain handles information and gives it over to us. Now, as for vibe, I'm going to give you two examples. The first one, if you have a room full of pendulum clocks with all the pendulums swinging, at first none of them will be swinging at the same frequency. If you leave them long enough, all of them will eventually be going at the same pattern or rhythm or frequency or vibration. Second example, if you have a room full of guitars and you strum a string on one of them, the rest will begin to vibrate at the same tune. What determines the group frequency is the strongest, most resonant frequency in the room. Now, each of us has a harmonic resonance. Historically, the atom, which comes from the Greek word atomos, meaning uncuttable, was thought to be the smallest particle. Then we discovered the nucleus, protons, electrons, and we thought that was the smallest. Then we entered the quantum era, quantum meaning the smallest possible discrete unit, and things got really weird. Now we have bosons, fermions, and some of these are labeled as up, down, left, right, in, out, etc. I discuss all this because this is what you and I and everything in the universe is made up of. The strange thing is that all of these particles seem to like vibrations on a string, which means that we are all like that as well. This is what you mean when you walk into a room and get a vibe from it. You're literally picking up the strongest resonant frequency in the space. Now for being at cause or at effect. Now you have two choices. You can either go along with the resonant frequency or not. In other words, you can let the environment affect you, or you can affect the environment. It's like tuning into a radio station. All stations are playing at the same time, but you are only picking up a particular frequency of your choosing. When you decide to go along with the resonant frequency, you are being at cause, which means you are going along with the flow of whatever is currently happening and picking up on others' vibes. When you are the dominant frequency in the room by the power of your focus, You are at effect because you are now the dominant frequency. It is in your hands as to how you show up in every situation. Are you going to allow circumstances to tell you who you are, or have faith in yourself and perhaps God that you can see it your own way? It really is a decision, yet some of the hardest work that you can do. I believe the work is in staying true to how you want to be and not allowing outside influences to define you or your potential. Now, if you are inspired to define who you are and how you show up, you can actually divide up your day based on this system. What I mean is that you can create segments all through your day that can be of any length or for any purpose. You can have a segment for when you are driving or dealing with a customer, sending an email, or even taking a walk in nature. Each one of these tasks or moments has a different input, relevance to you, and a different output than each other. When you divide your day up into segments rather than having one general, I'm just going to do my best for the whole day, you can become very intentional about everything. It's the little things that you do every day in every moment that build your future and set you up for the next moment. So how do you actually set a segment intention? Well, let's think of us in relation to everything and how we conventionally think of it. We think that what we are seeing and hearing at this moment is reality. However, we've already talked about how we are only consciously aware of a slight fraction of what is actually going on around us. Also, the electromagnetic waves that you are sensing through your ears and perceiving with your eyes are actually the past. It takes time for sound waves to hit your eardrum and for your auditory system to send a signal to your brain. Meanwhile, each of your eyes is seeing photons of light separately. This information is then combined, flipped over, and sent to the brain. The brain then combines the sight, the sound, the smell, etc., puts it through its threat assessment test, gives it meaning, pulling out of it what you believe is relevant based upon your beliefs and your focus, and then sends it to your prefrontal cortex where you become aware of the stimuli. By the time you're able to process all of that your eye, ear, etc. is already receiving new signals. What is actually the present to you seems like the future, and you can color what you perceive by what you expect. In quantum physics, there are lots of weird things that happen, like quantum tunneling, where electrons go through a wall without making a hole. Quantum entanglement, where two particles that come in contact and then taken miles apart react immediately to stimulus that happens to the other particle. Particles acting as both a wave and a particle at the same time. And probably most importantly for this talk, the observer effect, where scientists have found that they are unable to separate what they expect the outcome of an experiment to be, even if they make the decision after the experiment has already occurred, from what actually happens. One other weird thing is a really cool theory out there called the one electron theory. Now, this is just a theory, but scientists are stunned that all electrons have the same mass and the same charge. And there's one theory is that there is only one electron in the universe and it just skips space and time. Now, how trippy is that? And that means they're all using the same electron at the same time. Now again, this quantum stuff is what we and everything else is made up of. So if you project what you intend, you affect what is called the quantum field of potential. Think of everything you know of as a flat piece of cloth. Anything that takes form on that cloth from you and me, planets, stars, tables, chairs, etc., are disturbances on the cloth. Anytime something happens on one part of the cloth, it affects everything else. You've heard of this as the butterfly effect, where the flapping of a butterfly's wings in Brazil affects the wind in Texas. This is part of the chaos theory, which is what actually drives the universe. So I hope that's been a lot of information. I'm now going to be here to answer any questions or to go over anything that might have been confusing. But I hope I have taken you to where you understand that you are able to actually, by some of the weird parts of what is truly reality, you really are able to choose what you are, who you are, when you are, how you are, and what is going to be for you in your experience. And then that goes out and changes the entire universe. So choose wisely.